So I think we're good to start. So hello everyone. So thanks for joining us on this Saturday. So we appreciate your interest, to spend your time to support our community. So thanks for that. So we'll just start off with our introduction. So just to those who are new to our community, like I'll just give a small introduction. Like ng-Keralam, ng-Keralam is an community. Like it's a sub part of Talkify community where we do meetups focused on Angular. Like we do events every month, the last Saturday from 5 p.m. IST to 7 p.m. IST. So but yeah, unfortunately, like this Saturday we have only one session, but yeah, it would be more focused. Like it's a single session, like you can focus more and you can get clear your doubts. And if you want to get updates of our meetup events, just go to our meetup site, like meetup.com/talk2fair community. You can just go to this community and you can join our meetups. If we schedule any events in future, like you'll be notified, so you'll keep track of our community events. Today we have a speaker. So he's Aris, and he'll be talking about how to electronify your Angular app. So basically, he's a GD for Angular, and he's also a co-organizer of Angular 8 meetup group. And yeah, I think it would be a good session for you guys. Like, if you have any doubts, just raise it in the comments. We'll pick it up at the end of the session. Okay, I think that was all about introduction. So over to you, Aris.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
So let me share my screen.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. I think I hear my voice through your mic. I think there is an echo, Suhas.
Okay. So
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot. So hello everyone. My name is Aristeidis Bampakos, and I live in Greece, in Athens, the capital of Greece. And today I'm gonna show you how to electronify your Angular application, or in other words, how to run your Angular application in desktop with the Electron.js framework. You can read for any question after the event or any general question about Angular, you can reach me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @abampakos, or through the LinkedIn using my name, Aristeidis Bampakos. I would be happy to answer any question that you may have. So what we are going to see today? Today we're going to see the basics and a brief introduction of what is the Electron.js framework. And then we're going to see two ways for integrating Angular with Electron. The first way, it's the hard way, the most complicated one, because it requires from the developer to actually write some code from their side. And the second one is the easy way. using a library that I have created, which is called ng-Electronify. So let's get started. I work as a front-end web developer at Plexearth, a company here in Greece, and I'm also, as Su has said, a Google developer expert for the Angular framework. I co-organize an Angular meetup here in Greece, which is called Angular Athens Meetup, and also I work as a senior Angular instructor at the company called CodeHub, which is a private educational institute. Where we teach the Angular framework to other developers and individuals. Also, as you can see from the flag behind me, I am a very huge fan of the Assassin's Creed game, but unfortunately, the last 2 years, I don't have so much time to play my favorite game because I'm an author for publishing. I have already published a book, written a book for Angular, which is this one, which is called Learning Angular 3rd edition. It is destined for beginners, and it guides you through scaffolding a new Angular application from scratch up to deploy it to a web hosting server. A bonus chapter in this book is the last one, which guides you how to create a real-world Angular application through all the knowledge that you have acquired in all the chapters. This book is now available to buy if you want from the Amazon website and from the Pact website. And in a very few days, I hope, my new book will be available, will be officially released, which is called Angular Projects 2nd edition. And it is destined for beginners to the Angular framework that want to deep dive into more advanced topics. Actually, it learns you how to build modern web applications using Angular with 10 different technologies. For example, each chapter is a different project. There is a chapter how to build an issue tracking system with reactive forms. Another one, how to create a server-side rendered application using Angular. Another one, how to create a PWA weather application using Angular. And of course, there is a chapter how to integrate Angular with Electron and create a markdown editor of your own. So there are pretty much various technologies in there. I have put the link to the Amazon website in case you want to pre-order it, because it is available for pre-ordering, and also a QR code that you can scan for your convenience. So enough with me, let's get started with the actual content of our talk. So what is Electron.js? Electron is a JavaScript framework which works cross-platform, and this means that it is available for Windows, macOS, and Linux, and it allows you to create desktop applications with web technologies using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Actually, it is an npm package that you can install using the npm install command that most of us know, npm install Electron, which is the name of the npm package. Now, please notice that we use the -d option to install the Electron. Electron is not used runtime in our application. It is a development dependency because we are using it to bundle our application as a desktop one. Electron is built with Node.js and Chromium. Actually, it has a version of each of them inside it integrated. The main advantage of Electron is that you can leverage your existing web skills to create a desktop application without learning another desktop language, for example, C# or C++. There are many applications, famous applications, popular, that are written with Electron, such as Visual Studio Code, of course, Slack, Teams, or WhatsApp. If you go to the website of Electron, that I have put a link on the last slide, you will show a vast list of applications that you couldn't ever imagine that it is an Electron application, right? So let's talk a bit about the architecture of Electron. Electron comprises of two processes. The main process, which is mostly concerned with the actual system, with the actual resources of our system. and it is used mainly for heavy tasks and calculations. For example, if you want to interact with your file system, write or read files. And it is this process that provides access to the native resources of your system using the API of Node.js. The second process is the renderer, which is mostly concerned with the user interface of your application. Actually, it is this process that manages the user interface, and most of the times it is the index.html file of our application. Now, the Electron architecture is based on the multi-process architecture of Chromium. So in every Electron application, we can have only one main process that can communicate with different renderer processes. But each renderer process operates in complete isolation. So if you want to communicate from one renderer to the other, you need to go through the main process. All right, let's see how we would write an Electron application. Electron is a JavaScript framework, so the main entry point of an Electron application is a single JavaScript file that we usually call main.js, like we do in the Node.js applications. First, we need to import two artifacts from the Electron npm package: the app object and the browser window object. The app is the global object of our Electron application. You can think of it as your browser, right? The browser window, it is the window that is loaded inside the app object. And you can think of it as the tab of your browser. So it is obvious that an app object can have many browser windows, just like a browser can have many tabs. After we import the two artifacts, we use the browser window constructor to create a browser window for our application. We pass some options to set the dimensions of the window, for example, width and height, and we can also pass other options. You can check out again this in the Electron website, how many options, what are the available options. I can assure you that there are a lot of it. So after we create the browser window, we call the load file method, and we pass the HTML file that we want to load inside this window. So we have, in this snippet, we have built a function to wrap all this functionality. Now, the function create window is called only when the when ready promise of the app object is resolved, because it is this promise that actually notifies us that the app object is ready to accept new browser windows. After we have created this main.js file, let's see how we run it. We use our command line interface and we invoke the npm executable of the Electron npm package, passing the path of the main.js file as a parameter. And our desktop application loads, and we can see inside it the index.html file of our application. Pretty cool, right? Okay. Now, let's see a high-level overview of an Electron application. You see, it's summer, right? It's really hot here in Greece. Actually, it's 40 degrees Celsius. That's a lot. That's very hot for Greece. So what would be better to have an ice cream? I really love ice creams, especially on the summer. So I also like to think of software challenges or software patterns as ice creams. For example, in this case, the bottom of the ice cream, the base of the ice cream, is our main process. If we put on the base of the ice cream some toppings, for example, the default flavor of our ice cream, which is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which is actually our application assets, then we can have an ice cream, an Electron application, right? But what's going to happen if we don't want the default flavor, the default flavor in our ice cream, but we want the Angular flavor? Then things are a bit complicated because we can't just invoke the Electron npm executable and pass the main.js just we did previously. The build pipeline that we need to follow is very different because now we have the Electron code base and the Angular code base, and we need to integrate both of them. So first, we take the Electron code, which is the main.js, and we pass it through a bundler, for example, Webpack. And this will output a single file cell.js. At the same time, we invoke the Angular CLI for our Angular code base, and it will output a main.js file for the Angular code. So we now have two files for our two different code bases. These two files are generated inside the same dist folder that the Angular CLI creates, right? So then we can invoke the Electron npm client and pass the cell.js file name as a parameter. And what we will have accomplished, we will have a desktop application, a browser window that it will have loaded our Angular application. Why? Because recall that the cell.js file is the main.js file of the Electron code that calls the load file method passing the index.html file. That index.html file is the main HTML file of our Angular application, right? That's a bit complicated. This is the most complicated way that you can integrate an Angular application, an Angular and an Electron application. In the last slides, where are the resources for this talk, I have put a link to a GitHub repository in my profile that uses this approach. We have already seen the load file method that we use to load an HTML file. There is an alternate approach, which is called URL-based. The only difference in this approach is that we don't use the load file method of the main window, but we use the load URL method, and we pass the URL of the web server that hosts our Angular application, which the default one is localhost 4200. This URL, maybe it could be our deployed Angular application in our production server, right? So we could, with this way, we could load our production Angular application directly from the web server inside the Electron window. Of course, there are some differences between the two approaches. The file approach is more secure because you are loading an HTML file locally from your file system. So it is safe because you know what's going on in your file system. But the deployment is a bit more complex because, as we saw, you need to build both code bases together and put them in the same folder. The build is more unified in this approach, but it is difficult to update your Angular application. Why? Because if you want to make a change to your Angular code base, you need to rebuild all the code bases again, and the Electron and the Angular, and output a single bundle. The URL approach has more security issues, of course, because you're actually loading a URL which is out there in the web. So maybe there is a danger that someone will be in the middle and will pretend that it is your URL. But the deployment is simpler because you're building separately. You build the Electron application separate from the Angular application. And that is the reason that it is easier to update, because if you want to make a change to your Angular application, to your Angular code base, you just build it separately from the Electron code base, upload it to your web server, And the Electron code base will still point to the URL of your web server. So you don't need, actually, you don't need to do anything when you change the Angular code. Right, so we have already talked about the two processes of the Electron framework, the main and the renderer. Let's see how we can communicate between the two. There is a mechanism which is called inter-process communication, or IPC, and it allows us to communicate between the two processes asynchronously by passing messages through a common channel. This approach is promise-based. So we use two interfaces, the IPC main interface that we write in the Electron code, in the Electron part, and the IPC renderer that we write in the Angular code base. Let's see some code about the two interfaces. The IPC main interface, first we need to import it from the Electron npm package, and then we call the handle method on the IPC main, and we pass two parameters. The first one is the name of the common channel, in this case pirates. And the second one is an arrow function that will be called when someone sends a message to the pirates channel. In this case, it returns a list of pirate names. I really like pirates because, as I have already said, I'm a huge fan of Assassin's Creed, and especially Assassin's Creed Black Flag, if anyone knows about that. So another significant change is that we have modified the browser window constructor, and we set the node integration flag to true inside the web preferences object. We need to do this because the renderer process that we will write in the Angular code base must have access to the Node.js API. Actually, this approach is not so safe, right? But there is a way to overcome it and do not expose the Node.js API to the IPC renderer interface. So we have already created our main. We have written the code in the main process. Let's see now in the renderer. In the Angular code base, we have created an Angular service, just a simple Angular service, and that also injects another service which is called Electron service. The Electron service is part of a library called ng-Electron, which is actually a wrapper over the Electron API. So we have created a method, getPirates, that returns an array of strings as a promise. So we access the IPC renderer object from the Electron service, and we call the invoke method, and we pass the same channel as we did in the main process. This is very crucial because if you don't pass the same channel name, the two processes will not be able to communicate each other. So essentially, with this code, we are actually telling to the main process, I want to return to me a list of pirate names. Please notice that I said before that the IPC communication is promise-based, right? So you can normally use async await syntax inside your code bases, either in the Electron code, in the Electron side, or in the Angular side. This is what I prefer. So this approach, up to this point, I have showcased how to integrate Angular and Electron using a different approach, because as you see, I have written a lot of code. So there is an easier way than this one, which is by using a library called ngx Electronify. This library is different from the ngx Electron that we saw in the previous slide. The ngx Electron is a wrapper library for the Electron API. I have not written it. This library allows you to run your Angular application in desktop mode without writing any code. All you have to do is install the library using the Angular CLI add schematic ng-add ngx Electronify. So now let's see a demo of this approach. Let me open my Visual Studio Code. All right. So here, let me zoom it a bit. Here I have created an Angular CLI application. Actually, I have done ng-new, nothing fancy here, just a new skeleton Angular CLI application. And I have also executed the ng-add ngx Electronify. So I have already installed the Electronify library into this workspace. I would like also to point here that ngx Electronify is compatible either with Angular CLI projects or with NX monorepo projects. So if you want to install it to a specific project inside your monorepo, instead of doing ng-add ngx Electronify, you pass an option for the name of the project that you want to install it. So when you install ngx Electronify, the first thing that it does is it actually modifies your package.json and adds it in the development dependencies of your project. The second thing that it does is it modifies the angular.json file and adds a new architect section, which is called desktop. So all you have to do then is click running this desktop architect by clicking here. So if I click, you see that it invokes the ng-serve command. So it actually hooks inside the Angular CLI serve process, build your application, serves it, and then you will see that it will open the application inside the desktop window. So here is our application. Let me zoom it a bit. You can see that it is the same Angular CLI application as that you get if you have done ng-serve. It is a desktop window. As you can see, there is a native file menu here. We have the toolbar with the buttons. And also, this window here is actually a Chromium window. So everything that's available in Chrome, it is also available here. For example, if I go to View, Toggle Developer Tools, I have developer tools just like Chrome. I have the elements where I can inspect my application, the console, or the network, right? Okay. So let me make it smaller here. Okay. And I will open another window in the browser this time. Okay. And I will navigate to localhost 4200. Here we see the same application. On the top is a desktop application. On the bottom is the web mode. So if I go to make a change in my code, for example, let's change the title and say ng-Keralam rocks, and I save this change, you can see that the change has been applied to both windows. So in this way, you can develop your applications and preview it in the same, preview it in desktop and in web mode at the same time. So that was the demo. Let's switch to the slides now. Okay. So I would like also to say now that I have created this library just to showcase what the Angular framework can do, right? What you can do with this awesome framework, and of course provide some help to other people that want to develop their Angular applications in desktop mode. What's going on? What I would like to add in the next versions of the library. The first one would be to allow the developer to export the desktop application that we see as a single executable file, so that you can take it and upload it to your server so that your customers can download it, send it through email, and do whatever you want with that. So export it as a single executable file. The second is I want to give the ability to integrate Angular development tools. For those that don't know, Angular Dev Tools is a new addition to the Angular ecosystem. It is a Chrome extension that allows you to debug and profile your Angular applications. For this feature, there is an active pull request. Let me open it. Which is this pull request. It is from Jeffrey Boss. Huge shout out to this guy, Jeffrey Boss. He's a very nice guy, and he's one of the main contributors in the library. He has helped me a lot, and I would like to thank him so much. And the third one is to allow the developer to interact with the Electron API directly. For example, if you want to write some custom code to the main process, give you this ability so that you can create your custom IPC communication protocol, so that you can communicate from the renderer process, from the renderer to the main, and two-way, right? So to give you actually the possibility to communicate between the Angular and the Electron code base. Now, some things about security. Electron may look like a browser, but it is not a browser. It actually behaves like a browser, right? Because Chrome, Safari, Microsoft Edge are browsers that have many engineers that are working for these browsers, and they put many security, they solve many security issues by putting more security features, right? Electron does not have all these security features that browsers have. You can think of it as a browser without any security at all. So if you want to make it a browser, but I wouldn't recommend it, you need to take into consideration all security problems that exist out in the web. Also, we should not forget that an Electron window loads an HTML file. So any security problems that exist for HTML and JavaScript are also valid in the Electron applications. Why should someone create an Electron application? This is a question that a lot of people do to me, ask me. I have put 3 use cases that I think are a best fit for creating an Electron application. The first one is if you want to emulate a multi-tab or a multi-window environment inside your application. For those that remember, there was a protocol a long time before, it was called MFC, and it allowed you to it gave you the ability to create a desktop application using C++ or C#, and have separate windows inside this application. The second one is if you want to provide a native look and feel for your application. For example, if you want to have the native menu on the top, or you want to have the toolbar buttons, the minimize, maximize, and restore, then you should go for an Electron application. And finally, let's suppose that in the company that you work, there is already an existing desktop application, and you want to create a companion tool for this application and distribute them together as a single bundle. Then I would suggest to create an Electron application. And of course, the most important one, which I mentioned at the beginning, is if you know Angular and you don't know C# or C++, then you should create an Electron application with Angular if you want to create a desktop one. In this slide, I have put some links that I think will be helpful if you want to dive deeper in the Electron world, in the Electron and the Angular world. The first two, the Electron and the Electron, the first is actually the website of Electron, the official documentation. The second is a quick start guide, how to get started with Electron. The other two about security are focused more on security best practices, how to apply the security defaults that Electron suggests. And also there is a podcast that I did in WebRAS with John Papa about how to secure Electron applications. You can check it out also. And lastly, I have put 3 links from GitHub repositories. The first one is the ng-Electronify, which is a library that I show you how to run your Angular application in desktop mode. The second one, the Angular Electron sample, is a sample how to integrate Electron and Angular with a hard way, with a difficult way. And the third one is the ng-Electron wrapper library for the Electron API that I have used. So as a recap, what we saw today, I gave you a very brief introduction of the Electron JS framework. We saw some basics, and then we investigated 2 possible ways how to integrate Electron with Angular. The first way was the difficult way that requires you to write a lot of code from your side, from the developer side. And the other way is by using the ng-Electronify library that I have created, that you don't need to do anything, just run it and you have an Electron application. So that's it for me. I would be very happy to answer any questions if you have. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, I think that was very good demo, Aris. So thanks for that. So I think there are no questions yet. So guys, like if you have any questions, like you can reach out to him on his Twitter. Like I'll just show the Twitter handle below. So this is Twitter handle. Like you can reach out to him. I hope he will be happy to help, or else you can also reach out to him in LinkedIn if you have any questions regarding this session. So yeah, so thanks, Aris. Like thanks for your time, and thanks for speaking us, even though there is 40 degrees Celsius in Greece. So thanks, thanks for that, and yeah, so keep supporting our community, and thanks for joining on this Saturday. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Suhas. It was very nice to be here. Yeah. I really liked I really enjoyed, and I hope that more people will come to the Electron world from the Angular one.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the revolution will happen. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, thanks, Aris. So let me share my screen. Okay, guys. So I think we came to the end of the day. I think that was a quick 40 minutes session. So yeah, so I also tried so Electronify, Electronify Angular app, like the first way which Aris showed me, like the difficult way. Yeah, it was difficult, but somehow I managed to change it. But I haven't tried out the NGX Electronify library. Maybe I'll try it out after this session. So it seems quite useful. Like you can just change your Angular app within an instant to your Electron framework. So just give it a try out, guys. And so as I said earlier, if you want to get notified of our future events, just go to our meetup group. It's meetup.com/talkify community. Just go to our meetup group. The landing page would be looking something like this, and that there will be a join button here. You can just click join if you want to get update of our future events. So thanks everyone for joining. So thanks for your time, guys. So let's meet next month. Thank you, and stay safe. Thanks.